Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got a good friend of the podcast, Chris Rowe of Roe Hunting Resources. Chris, how you doing?
Doing all right. How are you?
Oh, doing just fine. It seems like we didn't talk much. We talked a little bit after elk season and did a little bit of a recap and what have you, but we've exchanged several texts here and there, but haven't spent too much on the time on the phone. We've both been busy going in several directions. What's been going on with you lately? We're sitting here kind of at the end of December and need a little catch up from Chris Rowe.
Yeah, it's. I think both of us have suffered from not having enough time to sit around and twiddle our thumbs. I think. No, the last time we spoke, I think I was on the. If I remember right, I was literally driving back from Arizona, wasn't it? Wasn't the Unit 9 recap? So yeah, dude, goodness gracious, there's a lot. So yeah, I drove. So yeah, from that point, I got home here in Kansas and literally parked the truck, unloaded the camper, did some laundry, and rolled straight into getting ready for all of our whitetail hunts out here on the properties that I manage out here in northwest Kansas. So, I mean, it was hit the ground running. And I think maybe you and I talked a little privately. We had some just serious monkey wrenches thrown into the works this year. We had a major flood. I don't know if we talked about that or not, but we had a major flood on the primary river drainage that goes through our properties, historical flood, and it literally wiped out. It's crazy the amount of change that created through that river corridor. So we had the flood and all the debris, and it changed movement corridors. It changed trees that I used to put tree stands on. It changed movement. It changed all sorts of stuff. And then on the tail of that, we had a pretty significant drought. So our crop rotation this fall got messed up because it was so dry. The soil moisture was so bad or the lack of soil moisture was so bad that we couldn't even plant the fall crops that we normally plant. We had other crops that just would not dry out, and so we had a late harvest, drought. It was crazy, but we got everything. I got all the tree stands up. I got everything prepped, food plots kind of touched up and worked on, and then that last week of October, our deer hunters rolled in and we started, and I have been going since. I mean, we just literally wrapped up rifle season last week. And so I'm kind of getting a chance to breathe a little bit. So
I've noticed you've been doing a little doe maintenance lately.
Yeah, a little management. Yeah, we don't have any shortage of deer, that's for sure. And depending on, well, again, crop rotation and what our fields look like, and depending on where they are, they can just pile in. And there's some years, like for instance, when I first started this, part of the reason why I help the landowner manage the properties is to try to assist in reducing some crop damage. And so there's been years where he's had pushing upwards of $30,000 worth of crop damage just from deer alone. So we try to whack the bejeebas out of as many does as possible. So all of our rifle hunters, all of our archery hunters, we encourage them to shoot as many does as they want to physically take. Any non-resident hunter that draws it, if you've ever hunted Kansas as a non-resident, you'll know that you draw your buck tag, but they'll also send you a doe tag. Well, if you have a doe tag, you're filling it. We want you to fill it. And then in addition, we can purchase up to 5 additional doe tags just strictly for doe management. And I always buy my 5, and the landowners that I deal with, he buys his, and so we try to maximize them as many does as possible. So yeah, I have 2 tags left, and I think by the time this airs, I'm running a little promo, just a little, I don't know, sweepstakes contest, just a fun little deal on my Instagram account. But I think by the time this airs, we'll be through it. But yeah, I've got 2 doe tags left. We're gonna see. I don't know if I'm gonna do it with a bow or I'm gonna wait till the January rifle season. We'll see, but it's been fun. It's been fun.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I know talking to you in September with the flood and everything, you were a little bit nervous because of how much it was going to change.
Yeah,
How did the deer adapt to the change?
flat left.
So
I mean,
they
literally, yeah.
they left and never came back, and these are new deer, or some of them came back.
Some of them came back. See, and this is, you want to talk about perfect storm of difficulty. The flood came through, and the water level rose incredibly. The way our river bottom is anybody, well, folks that have seen me post some of the pictures may recognize it, but the river bottom itself is pretty low and shallow. Okay, so I mean, there's no real big steep banks. It's not a really narrow channel. I mean, it's a big wide open channel. Well, even though it was a wide open floodplain, the water level was depending on where you were in the creek bottom, 9 to 15 feet high. Even some of our ag fields that were under center pivot irrigation were 4 to 5 feet underwater. The water channel in our area was more than a mile wide from one edge of the water to the other. And so yeah, that much water. So you figure a mile wide, and let's just on average, let's just say 4 foot deep on the upper portions. That water was flowing. This is a river, so it was flowing. Well, the people that were here, that happened early September. Well, friends that were here and some of the landowners, they said when that water started coming through, it was like Noah and the flood. I mean, they said there was frogs and toads crossing. It was just a mass exodus of every living creature getting out of that floodplain. It pushed a lot of animals up higher, up into the upland areas and up into those periphery little fingers, tributaries. But keep in mind, though, every little finger tributary, every little drainage, even if it was just a shallow depression in the fields coming out of the hills, those were all flooding. I mean, it was incredible. I think we got here 8 inches of rain within like 2 or 3 hours. And then upstream, they got something like 11 to 14 inches in that same storm. So, I mean, the volume of water was just incredible. So the animals just flat left. Well, when the water receded, some of them did come back. The problem with where we are is we added to that whole problem our crop rotation. We were getting ready. Some of our fields were purposefully left fallow after harvest this summer because next spring or early next summer, they're going to be planted into corn. So there was not going to be any food in these fields, period, anyway. All right, so on a portion of our property, there's no reason for deer to come back because there's no food there. Meanwhile, a mile up the river bottom on our neighbors, they just have acres upon acres upon acres of standing corn, standing soybeans, and standing milo. Just cover and food galore. Well, because it was the river bottom, because of that flood, the soil saturated so great that nothing dried out. All of it, in those particular areas, the crops just never would cure out enough to where they could get the moisture was too high in the corn or the soybeans or the milo. They just couldn't harvest. So here we have no food on us, piles of food on our neighbors, and they can't harvest it. So we have a delayed harvest. We have more cover. So when the deer came back in our area, they all piled in onto our neighbors. Meanwhile, on the other half of our property up north, it was great. We had standing soybeans and we had a pile of deer. But here's where land management comes in. We had our neighbor had some issues with trespassers and poachers and all sorts of other things going on. And they finally threw their hands up and they're like, that's it, we're done. They shut down all the hunting on their property. They didn't let anybody come hunt. Well, normally the property that they adjoin next to us has a bunch of hunters on it, which that disturbance usually kicks those animals over onto us because we are typically the sanctuary. Well, this year it was just the opposite. Our neighbor was the sanctuary. So it was just this, and there, because it was a little higher elevation, when that rain hit, it never gave it a chance to soak in. It all just ran off. So the ground was pretty darn dry. Well, we have food plots in there. Well, that's where I think you saw me posting some of those pictures. I literally was hooking up my hydroseeder, 500-gallon tank hydroseeder, and in October, for 2 different iterations, I went and put about 10,000 gallons of water on each of 2 different food plots just to keep something in the area to let the deer eat. I mean, it was crazy. As far as a perfect storm of difficult conditions, and then during the hunting season, people talked about it left and right. We had absolutely incredibly warm end of October into the beginning of November, to where most of the deer activity that we did have was all still nocturnal. So I mean, it was crazy tough. We did well. Our guys killed some really nice deer. I killed a nice buck as well, but it was just brutal tough. It was brutal tough. I'm looking forward to 2017. Let's just put it that way.
What happened to the turkeys with that? I assume they were already hatched, and did the poults?
Yeah.
Did you think you lost a bunch of turkeys, or did they come back?
Again, it shifted their movement quite a bit. I am seeing now bachelor groups of toms coming back. I will say they do not appear to be in the numbers that we normally have. But then again, I can't rule out the fact that maybe they're a mile or 2 away from where we normally see them. As far as the hatch goes, they did very, very well this year. I posted one picture on an upland area away from the river bottom. There was, I don't know, 200-300 hens and poults just in one big flock, which is normally what we see this time of year. So that looks promising. So I think with the flood itself, it just pushed so much out and distributed. And the other thing too, that I think for our turkeys, which is disappointing, we're going to see what happens, because the water was so high and because it was flowing so fast. It took all the organic matter, all the leaf litter, all of the topsoil, all of anything good and wholesome as far as habitat, and just scoured it and washed it away. So we have some just huge areas that used to be really, really great native grass and good nesting areas. Now it's just scoured. It's just bare mineral soil and a bunch of cheatgrass. So that itself, I think, has shifted some of our winter flocks, because they just don't have the native winter seed that they normally have in our area. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. But for anybody that's looking ahead for 2017, we seem to have had a really, really good hatch this year. It's just going to be a question of what was the survivability of those toms, especially the 2-year-olds and Jakes from last year. So we'll see.
Gotcha. And lately, has your weather turned off very cold, or is it still kind of mild compared?
Well, it's been mild but cooler. Obviously, this Arctic blast came down last week, and we had some brutal cold. 15, 20 below zero ambient temperature at night. So that was just one pulse, this one wave of cold. But it finally has broken to where we've had cold nights, in the teens and 20s, and then you're in the high 30s to 50s during the day. Like, for instance, today it's 54 degrees. So it's still nice, but we're finally getting some cold temperatures. And that's where, for anybody that's hunting late season, that's where it's been at. When we get these cold snaps, deer pile into the corn, and it makes it really predictable on where we're going to find deer.
How much longer does your, I assume they're late season archery tags, right? How much longer do those seasons run for?
Well, rifle ended last Sunday, so now we are finishing up the last portion of archery. So archery goes until December 31st. So if you have a buck tag or a doe tag, doesn't matter. Archery runs until the end of the month. Now, and then January 1st through, I think, the 8th, whatever that 1 week is, they have the late doe season, where it's any method of take. So you can use a rifle again, but that runs for just essentially that first week of January. And then once that's done, we're done. Done.
Gotcha. Well, you've been I guess one question I would ask you, when you're right in the middle of elk season, you're all fired up about elk. When you're right in the middle of turkey season, you're all fired up about turkeys. And now you're kind of just finishing up your deer season. For you, how does your love for deer, elk, and turkeys compare if you had to kind of say you one over the other?
Ooh.
How would you rate that? Or is it nice that there's three different seasons and you can just move from one to the other to the next?
I think that's going to have to be what it is. I seriously, because I kind of get tunnel vision in one track mind. So when it's turkey season, that's all I can think about. So when we hit about end of February into March, I'm shifting gears, and as soon as April hits, it's just turkeys. Turkeys, that's my life. Turkeys, I can't think about anything else. And as soon as turkey season ends, about middle to end of May, it is. It's like, I'll have like a 1 week transition period where I've got to kind of defrag my brain and scramble. But then all of a sudden now it's all about prep and doing elk. And that'll run right on until, end of September, beginning of October, depending on how long I'm, whether I'm down in Arizona or what. And as soon as that is done, my brain just switches, and now I'm all in on deer, and deer lasts until, that late rifle. As soon as the late rifle is done, that's when I switch gears again. The only caveat to that is the Denver ISE show is something I've been invited each year to come back and speak at. So I've got seminars at the Denver ISE show that's in the middle of January. Well, they want me to talk about elk. So literally, as I have tunnel vision and blinders on now, everything is just, my whole world is whitetails. I've still got to get prepared and get ready for my seminar mid-January. So, yeah, I'm glad that I do. I don't know if I could pick one over the other just because they're so different, and I have a passion for all three of them. I'm very, very grateful that they don't overlap.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things people ask me all the time, how come I don't get burned out? And for me, I think it's a function of having those different seasons of, fishing in the summer and, elk and then, sheep and coos deer and turkeys, and then back into fishing season. I think if all I did was chase elk, or all I did was chase sheep, or all I did was chase coos deer or fish all the time, I think eventually I would get tired of it. And I've always told myself that I want to kind of position everything where I don't get tired of my hobby and my passion, and somewhat my work being an outfitter and what have you. I feel like you can overdo it, and maybe some people, maybe they operate different, but usually for me, a couple months full bore, that's all I'm thinking about. After a couple months, I'm ready to shift
Yeah.
to the next animal, to the next strategies, to the next application of how I'm gonna, go about and do my hunts and stuff. So I'm sure you're the same way.
Well, and absolutely. The only thing, 100%. The only thing too that I'll add with that is, I think for me, one of the things that's helped me, especially like you just said, now that we guide, obviously you've guided for years, and I've done some, but I've actually gotten into more of it now. I think one thing that's helped me is not only the different seasons and kind of rolling from one to the next, but I always make sure I save some time for myself. So I am out there actively hunting for myself. I think that's the other thing too, is I know, turkey season, for instance, I'm running straight on through from beginning of April. It's absolutely every weekend. If not, I've got 3 days on a weekend, and then 3 days in the middle of the week, and then roll right into another 3 days. It's just boom, 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 boom. Whether it's two guys, up to last year I had 5 in one group. I won't do that again. But you're just cranking so many people that, yeah, you're absolutely right. You by about the 2-month mark, you're about burned out. But I always kind of cut it off to where I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go out for this day or these next couple days, and this is my time. This is my hunt. Just like the deer hunt this year, we had a couple of we had our deer hunts technically stacked. We had a bunch of people that are interested in coming out to deer hunt this year, but they didn't draw tags. You don't talk about, whether you believe in divine intervention or just just complete luck of the random draw. Holy moly, we had the potential to have 8 different hunters out here for deer. Well, all the conditions just absolutely threw a monkey. I'm glad they didn't draw tags. We had 3 of our guys draw tags, and then we had a guy or a couple guys for rifle, and it spread it out to where it made it workable. But as soon as my archery guys were done that second week of November, when we talk middle of November to the end of November, that was my time. I've got some time to get out there, get in a stand, hunt. My hunt was one day this year. I mean, it actually worked out well. But having time to go out for yourself, for me, has made a world of difference as far as keeping me fresh and energetic and looking forward at every season.
Yeah, for sure. Let's take a quick break here. GoHunt.com Insider is by far the most valuable tool a Western hunter could give themselves. GoHunt.com Insider are the industry leaders and #1 source for Western hunting for a lot of reasons. GoHunt.com Insider have changed the game for how hunts and hunting information are found. Within a matter of minutes using Filtering 2.0, you'll be able to filter by state, species, residency, odds of drawing a tag, specific hunting dates, and harvest success percentages to find the hunts that fit exactly what you're looking for. If you are a guy that applies across the West or just in your home state but want to find some new opportunity, there's no better way to do it than using GoHunt.com Insider. As an exclusive offer to my listeners, if you sign up for a GoHunt.com Insider membership for $149 a year and use the promo code JScott at checkout, you'll receive a $50 KUIU gift card. Head on over to GoHunt.com/insider and get yourself the most valuable membership a hunter could have. I have known the owners of the Outdoorsman's in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsman's is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J Scott promo code to receive 10% off any products. Chris, I couldn't agree more. This year I actually drew that elk tag, that archery elk tag on the beaver unit in Utah, and showed up and hunted September 1st through the 16th and didn't harvest a bull. But it was so fun being able to hunt myself, and was chasing a really big bull. And I'm happy to report that he made it through all of the seasons, including the late rifle season.
Wow.
And is alive and well. And, being able to chase a bull of that caliber and almost get it done twice. And quite honestly, I was just too close to him. The 2 opportunities that I had at him, I was too close. I mean, I had him at 5 yards and 10 yards 2 different times, and it's just too close. I'd rather have him out there at 30 yards, than at point blank range. But to be able to re-energize, I love guiding. But there is something about being able to hunt yourself and focus and be able to go at your own speed, at your own pace, and be totally focused on, for me, hunting that one animal, and knowing there were days that I never heard him or saw him and wasn't even in the game with him, but, could stay focused and had lots of opportunities at really, really nice bulls. But it was fun for me to just really push myself and see if I got him, and ultimately, he won. But also he won, but I was also super energized as far as my own personal hunts, and it was nice. There was part of me that kind of questioned whether the passion was still as strong as it had been in the past, and for me, I think it fueled the fire even more. This summer I made it a point because I knew I was going to the Beaver in Utah, and I knew it was going to be a very strenuous hunt. I did my best to get ready by, trail running, and I spend the summers there in Carbondale, Colorado, and it's a great proving ground, so to speak, or workout grounds to, get in mountain shape. And quite honestly, I got there to the Beaver thinking that I was ready to go, and I would say I wish I had the tag now because I'm more ready now. One thing I didn't even tell you is, so I prepared all summer. I went through the whole elk season, and then from the day I got back from elk season, I told myself I was going to continue to quote unquote hike or trail run here around the Scottsdale area. And we're fortunate. We have some great mountain trails, 5-minute drive from my house and 10-minute drive from my house, and some a little further, but I can do 4 to 7 mile loops every single day, and I have not missed a single day other than I drove up to the Arizona Strip, and on a couple of these hunts that I've gone on where I had travel days. But other than that, I've lost 15 pounds, and I'm in what I would say I'll be 44 in February, and I'm at 177 pounds, and I'm as lean as I've been in a long time, and it's just feels so good to just maintain that. And it's almost like yesterday my schedule was a little bit busy, and I had to get my run in before dark, and then boom, I was right back at it this morning, and it's just been a lot of fun. I guess what I'm saying is drawing that hunt really challenged me to just be in tip-top shape. And man, I've noticed through this fall in these different hunts, with the Arizona Strip mule deer hunt with my buddy, and with the sheep hunt, the December sheep hunt that I guided, the archery hunt, and then finishing this auction sheep hunt, and now staring the Mexico Coues deer hunts in the face, being in what I would call tip-top shape physically has just made a huge difference for me.
Nice. Well, if you want those pounds back, I found them. Yeah. So let me just tell you this, and full disclosure for everybody, because I don't lie about anything, and everything's on social media anyway. But dude, I'm actually just the opposite, and I'm not saying that on a prideful point. I am in rough shape right now. I'm probably the worst I've ever been. Beginning of October, or excuse me, got through all of October. I got done with Colorado, all through the mountains, running around Arizona for almost a month. So, just going crazy. Got back here at home in October, and I was great. I was feeling great. Got all the tree stands up, got everything going. I got all the way to the end of October. We had to get hay for the horses. I had to move a couple tons of corn and other stuff. And all of a sudden, I think it was just a mild muscle strain on my back, lower back. I've always had a chronic issue with my lower back, and stressed it. It got, it got bad, and I was like, well, I just can never give it a rest. And so literally over the course of 3 weeks, I just absolutely torqued it about 3 more times, into where I literally just today have had a decent day where I can basically stand upright and not be in serious pain. I think I finally have worked out I still have some really stiff muscles, but the problem that has given me now, my hamstrings are just, I normally can, say I'm in the shower or whatever, I put the little massage head on, I usually stretch out. I usually can stand upright, knees back, and I can reach down, touch the ground, not a problem. And if I'm really relaxed, I can almost put the palm of my hand on the ground. I'm usually pretty good. Dude, I can barely, up until today, I could barely bend over and touch my knees. It's been bad. And so I haven't been able to do anything for literally, well, now it's a little over a month and a half. I've got some serious work to do. So I'm kind of looking at 27. Well, the end of this year and then rolling into 2017. I've got to find something, because that is one thing. Any of you guys and gals that are listening out here in the Midwest, it's one thing to live out west in the mountains and have that luxury to be able to run the hills. But man, in the Midwest, we go find hills and there might be 200 feet elevation gain. Yeah. Yay, yay. So I'm really going to have to challenge myself to get myself on a better fitness regime and get myself back up to par. But the funny part is that both, here we are talking about that, and both of us have been criticized in the past about, oh, you guys don't talk about fitness. Oh, you guys poo-poo fitness. No, we've never poo-pooed fitness. We just have always said it's not the most important things in killing stuff. I didn't think. But anyway, yeah, it's critical. And here I am. I've got to definitely get my butt back in shape.
Well, I think anytime you have an injury, that can affect your activity level, and anytime you're injured, it's tough, and things can happen. It's just good to hear that you had a good day today, and maybe you can start bouncing back and start slow. And that's yeah. One thing I can even tell you after. I mean, in Carbondale, and I think this will reflect being 43. Coming out of turkey season, April and May, and I mean walking and doing a lot, but just eating pretty much whatever I want. And I've always been fortunate. I've been thin, but the older I get, the more I have to watch it. And then I really worked hard this summer, but it's taken me now. We're in middle of December to finally get where finally I looked down and started actually weighing myself and realized that I had started shedding quite a few pounds, but it wasn't like I was trying to lose weight. I was just trying to stick to my routine every single day, and it's finally gotten to where the trails are much easier. And I crack up here this Pinnacle Peak Trail right here by my house. It's 4.4 miles. And it's nice because you've got quite a bit of climb, and then you've got some downhill. It's kind of an interval training, and then you've got some steep and then steep down, and then you have to turn and basically do the whole thing over again. And I mean, even after elk season of being hunting for 30 days and being in the high elevations, I literally couldn't run that trail. And now I try to run all of the uphill sections and walk the downhill. I'm just not a fan of running downhill. Um, but even as fit as I feel like I am, I still, like my wife even commented today, she's like, man, even as strong as we get, we still are breathing hard and such. And that was one thing I thought, as a kid, in the teens and 20s, you kind of take for granted that, you can run, and yeah, you breathe, but it seems like the older you get, the more, I'm still breathing fairly hard, and I still feel like I've, got quite a ways to go to just be, in what I would call perfect shape. But it's fun trying, and it's there's been a few days when I've just thought, oh, I'll skip today, and I thought, as soon as I skip it, that'll leave the door open to
Yeah.
me being lazy. So I've just tried to focus on going every single day.
Well,
It's a time commitment, too. It's you've got to devote time to it. Most of what I do takes at least an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. But the results, I'm really looking forward to going Coues deer hunting here. We've got a trip at the end of December. We've got a group of 5 guys, and then we actually have about a 10-day break, and then we're going back on the 15th of January, and for our rut hunt, where normally we'll do a couple rut hunts back to back. The scheduling this year with the first hunt, we've got a couple of younger guys that are, I believe, in high school or maybe just graduated high school, and so Actually, I think they're seniors in high school, and their dads wanted to take them on Christmas break. So
Nice.
yeah, we're excited to hunt some new ranches this year, and it'll be fun because I can pretty much see. I'm notorious for seeing a peak off in the distance and just saying I just want to go over there, and I feel like this year I'll be able to go anywhere I want and you know be able to do it and not look so dreadful doing it, I guess.
so,
Feel so dreadful too.
so does that mean you're going to be running around more and less time behind the glass, or what?
No, I think ultimately what it's going to do is just allow me to feel better over a 7-day hunt and just be able to recover faster and be able to
Yeah.
probably cover more ground.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I'm going to glass any less, but I think I'll be able to, instead of seeing a peak and being like, wow, yeah, that's going to be a pull way over there, you know, I kind of look at it as, okay, I've got to get my 4 or 5 miles in, and you know, so for me, it's just kind of a motivation thing. Um, I've never been one to lift weights or anything like that, and there's nothing wrong with lifting weights. There's nothing wrong with getting strong. But for me, I think for hunting, having strong legs and be in hiking shape and have real, tough feet and be ready for that kind of stuff. For me, that's where it's at, and so it's been fun doing that.
Yeah, no, and you nailed it. I mean, the older we get, mid 40s, just it seems like you almost like every year you see a little bit of a different change. You're like, goodness gracious, I don't remember this being a problem, like last year or this, but that's kind of what I've always measured my fitness with is I know I'm going to be breathing heavy. I know it's going to take me, for instance, now living at, I think we are, this house, our house out here is like 2,000 feet elevation or whatever. Okay. I don't live in Colorado anymore. I don't live, I spend as much time as I can above 10,000 feet, but I don't spend near enough time above 10,000 feet to where it actually is going to help. So I know when I get back to the mountains or even in Arizona, if I go up a couple thousand feet from here, I know I'm going to be breathing heavy. Question is how fast do I recover? And I think that really makes a big difference. But you're absolutely right. Your leg strength and your back strength, just to be able to just go, 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 because it will. It'll definitely help. Like you said, you see that mountain peak off in the distance. You're like, man, I want to be there. Well, I want to be there. Does that mean it's going to take me an hour to get there, or is that's an all day hike to get there? So no, we'll see. Well, here's a question for you. I think you touched on it a little bit, but have you found now it to be, people say, if you do something for 30 days or 45 days or whatever, it becomes a habit. Has your fitness stuff actually become a second nature habit, or is it every day a conscious, I need to go do this and make the time?
It's for me running these trails around Scottsdale. It's been steady ever since I got back from elk season. So all of October, all of November, all of December, every single day, haven't missed a day. But it's still, I have to just, usually I wake up early and I try and hit the trail right at sunup, and it's so getting so dark, getting so dark so early and getting so light so late, that it's not like I'm getting up at 4 in the morning. Usually if I'm hitting the trail by about 7 o'clock, the sun's just coming up.
Sure.
But for me, it's not one of those. I still have to every day make myself do it. And you know, I hope that I can keep it up and maintain it, because I feel good. I was fighting plantar fasciitis the last couple years and had a pretty rough bout with it. And quite honestly, I've gotten pretty steady massage therapy on my feet and on my calves, and really trying to break all that stuff up. But I think this whole season I haven't had any trouble, and I think it's just from staying active and keeping those muscles activated. I think there was the old hunt hard during hunting season, and then February, March, kind of do nothing, and then run into turkey season, and all of a sudden my bottoms of my feet are going, what's going on? And then never being able to recover for a couple years, going straight into elk season and all that different stuff. I think now, by actually being proactive and working on it and staying active, I think it's really helped me. Um, as well. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's you just nailed my typical life. It's just go nonstop active for a month or two or three for hunting season, and then all of a sudden the winter hits, and I'm here in front of my computer doing videos, sitting in a computer chair or whatever, where all of a sudden my activity level goes right to the floor, and then here's April, start carrying around decoys and turkey vests and blinds and everything else, and running, just going crazy for 2 months, and then all of a sudden, boop, shut down, and it's just I'm gonna have to get myself. I mean, once I can move, I'm just gonna have to just literally just force myself to get on a regimen and just get myself back to where I need to be, which is I already know I'm in a hole to begin with, but it's gonna be a heck of a ride, that's for sure.
I my wife kind of laughs at me, and she doesn't like to hike with me very much, to a certain extent, because I'm one of those that if someone, I just don't ever like anyone to pass me, and it's really hard because there's some guys and gals in really really good shape, and she'll laugh at me because there'll be times when this buffed up looking dude all slicked up comes, and he runs by me going downhill, looking all great running downhill, and I walk downhill, I won't run. And then all of a sudden the uphill starts, and all of a sudden then I start running, and she's like, it doesn't matter how far that guy is. She's like, if you can see him, it's like you want to just reel him in. And I literally like kill myself trying to catch the guy, and he's got, a quarter-mile lead on me. And by the time I finally catch him, I'm ready to blow a nut down my shorts. I'm just exhausted, but it's just, I guess it's my personality of just, wanting to
That's what
push myself.
that's what gives you that high intensity interval training right there. That's all. That's all it is. It's just motivation factor. That's good.
Yeah, and
That's
then as
good.
soon as I get to the part where it drops back down and I can go to walk, and literally my face is bright red and my heart's beating
You're
out
just
of my
sucking.
chest. Yeah, but yeah, it's been fun. It's just a little bit of a change for me because I've really never been into exercise. I've been fortunate being thin and relatively, just kind of stay in decent shape. But yeah, so I've got that going on. I actually in October had a cool event after elk season and before my friend Danny Bright's Arizona strip hunt, deer hunt. I got an invite from a professional golfer friend of mine. I've been friends with Kenny Perry, who plays on the PGA Tour and now the Champions Tour, to caddy for him at the Newport Beach Toshiba Classic in the Champions Tour event. And a lot of people probably listen to the podcast don't know, but I played golf as a kid growing up and through high school, and actually played on a college golf team. And I put a lot of my efforts of my life into trying to be a good golfer, and was never that great in the grand scheme of things. Was always fighting for maybe getting to travel on the fifth position. In college they travel five guys, and I made some tournaments, but really loved golf, and that was a big part of my life till I was probably 20, 22 or 23. And since then I don't play. I probably haven't played twice in 10 years. But I got an invite to go caddy for my friend Kenny Perry. I've known him since I was 12 or 13 years old, and I've caddied for him before. But what was cool is I knew that I was in pretty good shape, and carrying that bag that's 50 pounds. Um, it was awesome being able to carry that bag for 3 days, and just carry it and not be tired, and that was a fun experience. He kind of finished middle of the pack, but we had a great time. And then went on that strip hunt with my friend Danny Bright. He had actually booked the same guides, MDA Outfitters, Breck and Bronson Bundy, the same guides that Dar booked last year when Parker drew that mule deer tag, and Parker shot that great buck, and of course Breck shot that 290-inch giant. The guide actually had a tag himself, and some would say, well, why would you book with the guy that has a tag himself? Darn, I thought it was a great deal because we knew he'd be doing a lot of scouting, and
Yeah.
figured we could shoot, I say Parker could shoot any buck that, Breck didn't want to shoot. So it worked out great. Well, Danny booked MDA Outfitters for his hunt, and Danny, Chris, is the guy that also spends the summers. Him and his girlfriend spend the summers in Carbondale, Colorado. So he fishes with me,
Nice.
three or 4 days a week, all summer. And so he was really looking forward to that hunt. And so Dar and I went up there for that hunt, and we had a great time. Danny had, we saw a lot of really nice bucks, and bucks that anywhere else you would shoot on the first day and just be tickled pink, and 200, 205-inch type deer. And he ended up killing a buck on the very last day. That's kind of a cool double eye guard buck. Not the buck that he was dreaming about when he drew his tag, but it was fun getting to hunt for that period of time. And there were a couple great bucks shot in our camp. I think there was a low 230s buck that a girl shot, Samantha Davis shot, and then Niels Foley shot. I think it was a 225, really cool, kind of a hook cheater buck. And so it was awesome to see the quality of deer up on the Arizona Strip, but also got to experience, the trail camera madness, and
Seriously?
all of the stuff that goes on with everybody knowing everything about every deer. And for me, it kind of takes a little bit out of it. I wish we could just get back to, for me, there's part of me that really likes to go out and hunt and not know what's there, and kind of just what's around the next ridge, and kind of have that sense of, is there a big buck around, rather than know every single buck.
What are they putting game cameras on? Just water holes or trails, or what are they doing?
Yeah, let's take a quick break here and I'll dive into that. Reel game calls featuring the elk reel. Reel Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy-to-master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle-tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on Earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com. PhoneScope is a company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. It is simple to text photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get yours now by using the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope. That's PhoneSkope.com, or on Instagram at PhoneScope. Yeah, so the game cameras up on the Arizona Strip is a lot like Unit 9 in the fact that all over the Arizona Strip, and I don't want to come off like I'm an expert at all. I've only been there 3 or 4 times in my life for several hunts. I don't guide there. I just have been able to accompany friends of mine that have drawn the tag. But there's trick tanks, or game and fish, game waters,
Gotcha.
all over the unit. And there are stock tanks as well. There's not very many springs, but there's a lot of trick tanks. So every trick tank literally has 8 to 15 trail cameras. And I mean, you can be in some remote, like the Arizona Strip is huge. Like there's places that you can go drive through Arizona, go up through Vegas, come through St. George, and then come down obviously there's a big canyon in the way called the Grand Canyon. So there's only a couple ways into the strip, but if you go up that way and come from St. George, you can drive for like, I want to say it's like 98 miles and still be in the Arizona Strip,
Jeez.
from north to south. And people don't get a grasp until they're up there of how big it is. But in essence, in order, man has a tendency to overcook things and overdo things. And I just feel like, I never thought I'd say it, but I almost feel like the trail camera deal has been overcooked on the mule deer and on the elk. I don't feel as much on the coos deer because there's a lot of live water and a lot of springs, and it just doesn't seem to be as much of a problem on the coos. But the mule deer, especially on the strip, anytime you get big giant deer and you get humans involved, and then you add, guide services and outfitters, which I'm one of them, not necessarily up there, but I'm a part of the outfitter brotherhood, so to speak. You get egos involved, you get, guys wanting to shoot big deer, and there's nothing wrong with that to a certain extent, but it just seems like we've overcooked this deal. And like I said, I sure wish, I'm not saying that banning trail cameras is what I'm asking for, but maybe we do something like we let guys run cameras and scout, but then when the season starts, or maybe 2 weeks before the season or something, you just pull all cameras, and if there's a camera found, it's confiscated. And maybe we could get back to just, not knowing everything about it. Now, my personal opinion on private land, if you own a big ranch or you own a big farm or a big piece of private and you own the property and you can run 1,000 trail cameras, I say go for it, because the difference in my mind is you're not interfering with someone else's hunt. And I think by having all these trail cameras on public land, and you've seen it in Unit 9, I think one of the biggest problems is you end up having to go check your trail camera at all hours of the day, and you end up interrupting someone else's hunt. The other thing is, I think it creates this sense of, that's my buck.
Yeah.
And that buck over there, that's my buck. And this buck over here, that's my buck. And just because you have a picture of them doesn't mean that it's your animal. It means you've seen a picture of them, but it's just as much the camera's next to you's buck as it is yours. Oh, well, this guy doesn't spend as much time as I do, so that's my buck. Well, really, if he has a camera, or he or she has a camera up there, it's every bit theirs as it is yours. But it seems like we've overcooked it as humans, and a lot of guys don't play well with others, and I'm guilty of the same thing. So I'm not like talking down about anybody. I'm part of the problem myself, I think, having my own human ego. But yeah, what are your thoughts, from what you saw in Unit 9 with the same thing?
Well, and here we are, almost an hour into this one. I think we're going to have to make this a two-parter. We talked about it, I think, and I don't remember if we talked about it on the last podcast or if it was just you and I talking on the phone, but man, oh man, the combat bow hunting, or combat hunting in whether it's rifle season out here in Kansas, whether it's wherever, it doesn't matter. There's all sorts of different sportsmen, and there's all sorts of different hunters with all sorts of different value sets and what they culturally find acceptable or what they want to do. And it seems like, a lot of times it seems like the certain type of hunter just will gravitate towards a certain type of outfitter if they're going to use an outfitter, or they're going to hunt a certain way that may be not what I enjoy or you enjoy. Let's just, like, for instance, Unit 9, we talked about the fact that, and it's not just me, it's not just you, there's a couple other guys that are well-known outfitters in that area that, we just sit back and you look, and I'm new to the game. You guys have been doing it for years and years. Last year was the first time I guided, but goodness gracious, it seems like the fun has been ripped out of it. To a large extent, is when you're in some of these areas, when we're talking about trophy, and I don't want to get, we're talking about limited entry unit, we're talking about premium units here. So if you're putting 20, putting in for 20 years to hunt a certain area, you're not putting in 20 years so you can get this awesome piece of meat. Let's just put it out. You're putting in 20 years to hunt Unit 9 or 10 or 23 elk in Arizona, or you're putting in for how many years does it take to draw a strip?
Well, you
10,
pretty much have to have max points as a non-resident, and
which is what?
18 points.
Okay.
And
so
even as a resident, like Danny had one less than max, and so I mean most people have 15, 18, 20 years putting in.
Yeah, you're not putting in 20 years to go hunt the Arizona Strip so you can shoot a 2x2 meat buck. That's not the point. The point is you want a trophy animal. You want and let's just not even use the word trophy, because everybody's, trophy's different. You want an animal that has gigantic stinking antlers.
Right.
All right, period. That's what you want. And so you're right there, you're putting a qualification on your standard of what you want out of that hunt. That's boink right there. I want big antlers. Okay, well, how big? Well, and how big, number one, and number two, how much of that emphasis, what is the level of priority of that emphasis? There are some hunters, you've had clients like this, and I know Steve has, and other people, I drew, or whether it's the Arizona Strip for mule deer. Okay, I drew a strip tag. I want a 200. I want a buck that's over 200 inches. And I'm guessing, I'm not a big mule deer hunter, but I'm guessing that a lot of guys are not even a 200-inch buck. They want something significantly over 200 inches. Versus, Unit 9, 23, 10, whatever, as far as elk, it's, I want a 380, I want a 400, I want, whatever. Okay, if you put that number to it, how important, just what is that level of importance on that particular number? There are some guys that, man, that is the end-all, be-all. It has to hit this number or else it's not a successful hunt. And so, goodness gracious, you grind, as far as us being the outfitters, you grind day in and day out just trying. Meanwhile, we're passing up really fun opportunities, or an experience that we've had, calling a bull, or you see a deer, or you get to where, okay, well, it didn't meet the magic mark, so let's just move on. Well, dang it. We could have had a heck of a lot of fun with that 360 bull. You know what I mean? To where I don't know. So it becomes problematic. And then when you have, like your discussion, describing here, every camp, you got one hunter and 10 assistants. You know what I mean? One hunter in a camp, but he's got 10 buddies helping. I'm guilty of it. I know you're guilty of it. We all try to fit along and play in, but you're absolutely right. It becomes, we saw it wasn't so much this year, but last year where people sitting water holes pretending to be hunters. They weren't hunters. They were just cobbing a squat on a water hole because, well, this is quote unquote my bull, and I've got to save this bull for my buddy. He's hunting over here, and then we got another guy over here, and over. Basically, just cobbing a squat on these areas and excluding everybody else, man, it does take the fun out of it. And I know a lot of people get burned out. You and I talked about the fact that I enjoyed my guiding and my client this year, and I did go ahead and renew my Arizona outfitter's license. But I seriously think that anybody that picks up the phone and calls me and says, hey, Chris, can you take me? I think I'm going to be picky on who I take. If someone says, I want to hire you because I want a 380 to 400-inch bull, and that's all I want, I may just say, no, thanks, call someone else. Call a number of one of these other outfitters. But if someone calls up and says, I want to go experience Unit 9, or I want to experience such and such, let's come out and have fun. I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to try to find the biggest bull in the stinking unit that we can find, or like for here in Kansas, I'm going to work my butt off and try to find you the largest deer that we have on our properties. And I know we've got some smokers, but more importantly, I'm going to bust my butt so you have one heck of an experience, and it's a fun experience, not a pressured experience. I don't know if that makes any sense or I'm rambling, but
Yeah,
dude,
no, I mean, I think that goes back to like what I said. I feel differently on public land than I do on private, and some may think that that's, you know, a little bit weird, but I feel like on private, you own that land and you have every right to know every inch and every animal that lives on it, even though you don't technically own the animals. If they're on your property and you want to know about it, I think the biggest problem is, on your, or the biggest difference is like on your own property, you actually own that property. You can decide which hill you want to sit on, which tree stand you want to sit on.
yeah,
You can walk through a field knowing you're not going to screw somebody else up. I just feel like on public land, it's created this real entitlement. It's created this real, like, that's mine.
yeah,
I know that buck, I know that buck, I know that bull, I know that bull, I know that ram, or whatever. And it's, to me, we've gone too far. And I'll just say it. I think we've gone too far. And I think that something has to be done to make it more of, um, just not so interfering with other people's hunts.
yeah,
That's the problem for me, is it interferes. Everybody knows everything about every animal, that the elk, the sheep, whatever, they don't have any chance to you know try and escape. I mean, they can't go get a drink of water anywhere without getting their picture taken.
yeah. No, and that's the thing. Public land, we've got to share it. I mean, bottom line, we got to share it. And yes, you spent 20 years to draw that tag. Dang it, this is my time. It's 20 years. I finally got my tag, and dang it, I'm gonna. Yeah. Well, guess what? The guy that you're looking at, that you're racing down the road and trying to drive off the road, or you're yanking his game camera off the tree, or you're throwing his ground blind in the middle of the water hole. The guy that you're lashing out at, he spent 20 years, or she spent 18, 20 years. They're in the same boat. And I think that's exactly it. You get some of these people that just, and it's not everybody, because there's some really good folks out there that we ran into that, anyway, it has to be, I don't know. I used to be a strong proponent of we have to police ourselves, but goodness gracious, that just doesn't work. And out here on the private land, I agree with you, private land. However, I can show you numerous examples where landowners have said, yeah, come out and hunt. Well, they don't manage it. They don't monitor it. They don't control it. And guess what? It gets to be just as ugly, if not even more so. Fights, damaged property, people interfering, running stuff in with trucks, just shooting out of the truck, even though there's people sitting in a ground blind somewhere, people going in and stealing people's ground blind off of private property. It's not even their property.
Yeah.
Just because it just becomes this combat type of ordeal. Whereas, that's why we do what we do and how we do it. We allow a fair, I would say, a high level of hunting on our properties, but it's managed to where we don't have to worry about that. Okay, you're going here, you're going there. This is when you're going to be there. This is when you're going to be here, and we share it. We make it work so everybody has a quality experience. The thing is, and this is where I think I struggle in my head is, again, what you're dealing with, though, and here we are talking about, that's our value set, Jay. We have a certain value, or a value set and a series of, I don't know, I'm trying not to ramble, but we have a value set that we hold dear to ourselves, but we have to be understanding that not everybody shares that same value set. I get done here, with rifle season, and I just cringe. It just makes me cringe seeing people just driving pastures with trucks, shooting out of the window with trucks, where they're just going through and just pushing out one river bottom and pushing, I'm going to push out landowner A's property. I'm going to push it over into my property so he can shoot whatever, comes out the other end. It just, drives me. But that's culturally, I mean, that's how you deer hunt. I mean, since you're a little tiny kid, that's all is we get, rifle season shows up and we get in the truck and we drive the pastures and that's how we hunt. Okay, that's not how I hunt. But, I mean, as long as, if it's legal, then okay, But if we're talking about public land, you do. I think at some point we have to sit there and say, okay, how do we somehow find a harmonic balance between everybody's value set and that just incredible desire? I mean, I think there's a lot more people that are out there just wanting either a quality hunt experience or a quality animal, and sometimes nary the two shall meet. It just causes conflict. But I don't know. I don't know if that's more laws. I don't know if that's more education. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, it's, the answer is, I don't know what the answer is. One of the things I enjoy so much, I was talking to Dar about this, what I enjoy about our Mexico Coues deer hunts is the ranches are all private, and I just enjoy getting to the gate, unlocking the gate, driving through the gate, locking the gate back, and having a whole big, some of the ranches are 10, 15, 20, 25, 30,000 acres, and you have the whole area, and you know that you can just go hunt. And I get calls all the time from people wanting to go Coues deer hunting in Mexico with us, and they say, well, do you have trail camera pictures of the bucks that we're going to be shooting? I say, no. What do you mean, no?
Yep.
I don't run trail cameras. Well, what do you mean you don't run trail cameras? How can you know what kind of deer you have? I said,
we're going to find out.
I say, we may not be the outfit for you. We don't run trail cameras. We love the fact that we come, we open the gate, we lock the gate, and we go and we hunt. We go glass, and we hunt for 7 days, and we don't know what's around the next corner. We don't know what's in that canyon. We don't know what's up in the draw. We only know what we see. And I'm not saying that, we couldn't run trail cameras, or that maybe we wouldn't run a trail camera or two on a water hole that, maybe we want to see if, what kind of bucks are coming in. But the adventure of what's around the next corner, and the adventure of, of the hunt. At some point, as hunters, why are we doing it? Are you doing it just to get a big buck? And trust me, I've been there. I want to shoot a big buck just like anybody else does. And one of the biggest Coues deer buck I ever shot, I have a trail camera picture of him. It wasn't my trail camera, but I knew that buck was there. So I stayed there and stayed there and stayed there over, 2 full weeks of hunting, and finally killed the buck because I knew he was there. And yeah, I'm grateful I shot the buck and all that. So I'm a little bit hypocritical, but it's one of those things that now, that was 7 years ago. Now I'm kind of to the point where I just want to go hunt. I want to enjoy glassing. I want to enjoy the hikes in the morning with the headlamp up to the knob. I always like to go 30 minutes early, get to the knob while it's still dark. I love watching the sunset come up, or the sunrise come up, and watching, the whole landscape come alive, and deer getting out of their beds. And that's what I go for. And we do pretty good. And yeah, if we had trail cameras on every single water hole, we'd probably do better as far as we'd know every single deer. But that's not why I do it. I do it because I may go for 6 days, and all of a sudden on the 7th morning, I glass over and there's a 125-inch buck standing there. And, I crap down both legs and shake like, shake like a dog peeing razor blades. But it's like, that's what gets me going. And if I knew every single deer that was there, it wouldn't be near as fun. Seems like it'd be stressful because you'd be so stressed out about trying to kill some particular buck that you would lose the fun of why you're even there in the first place.
Yeah, but again, okay, I'm just going to go back to playing devil's advocate again, but we have to always remember that's value sets. I'm the same way. I absolutely am. This year this season has taught me so much about what we've got going on here in Kansas. That number one, that's why we do have such a demand. Why we have so many people that want to come out and hunt with us. And if it wasn't for the stinking draw, goodness gracious, we'd be able to really kind of cater to some folks a little bit better. But just so many people nowadays just want a quality hunt experience, and I don't care whether you're talking about public land or not. And that's why more and more people are putting in for more and more premium units and wanting to get farther back in the backcountry, get away from people. Why? Because you want to reduce the impact of other hunters out there that don't maybe not hunt the way you do, or not as carefully as you do, or whatever. So I think more, whether you're a public land hunter or a private land hunter, I think there's a very strong trend to move towards a quality experience, but yet our quality. What the question is the quality of antler or quality of experience? And for us, the same thing. It's quality of experience. And one of the things I've learned this year in these linear corridors that we're dealing with, it doesn't matter. I next summer I am not running trail cameras for deer all summer long to take inventory of the bucks that are on our property. It's pointless. It's useless, because the deer that we have up and down our river bottoms in the summer are not the deer that show up in the fall. Literally every year it's been like this for the past 4 years. Doesn't matter the habitat, doesn't matter the crop rotation, doesn't matter. Our summering bucks are not the bucks that are here during the rut. They just get out and they move. They make that pre-rut move and they hit the ground running. And all of a sudden we have deer that we've never seen before. Those are the deer that are running the creek bottoms when hunting season rolls around. So most of the time I've got trail camera pictures of awesome deer, but that may be they might just show up once and they might not show back up again for 2, 3, 4 weeks, because they're running these long corridors and they're just making these routes to where our hunters every morning is the same way. We know what we saw the night before, we saw that morning. We know what the wind direction is going to be doing. We know where the food is. We know where the does are. So let's just go climb in a stand and let's just see what shows up. And the deer that we killed this year, I killed a buck that we did have on game camera, but the other hunters, I mean, we had one hunter shoot a beautiful, beautiful big mature buck, mid 150s, that we had no clue that was ever around. But then our other hunter saw a couple of, I showed him some game camera pictures. He saw those 2 deer, and man, I can't blame him. I mean, they're mid 160s, almost 170 class whitetails with that, and one of them was probably about a 250 pound and that would have been dressed. I think he'd have probably tipped the scales at 250 pounds dressed. He was a giant. And as soon as he laid eyes on that, well, those are the only deer he wanted to hunt. So, I mean, it was, I don't know. Goodness gracious, I don't know. People want a quality experience. Just trying to find out what that means to everybody, and I don't know. I don't know. There's so much going on.
It's a can of worms, dude. It's like there's no way to make everybody happy. It's just, I think I've come to a point where I've seen other people's hunts affected and ruined, quote unquote, from cameras, and I've seen other people's hunts ruined or their experience ruined from, people thinking that they own different animals and that they're going to flood areas, and it's just like, I've kind of gotten to the point where I just don't want it that bad. I don't need to shoot something big that bad that I'm going to ruin somebody's hunt.
Well, what's on the strip there? Has anybody done? And I know we don't do this on elk in Arizona to a certain extent. For the strip, has anybody run and looked at teeth wear, jawbones, age of some of these animals? I mean, if you're talking, and maybe it's moot point, because if the strip is that big, maybe these deer just get absolutely lost in there. But are the people that are killing these 230 plus inch deer, or whatever, are these like 8-year-old deer, or are these younger age class deer that just have exceptional genetics?
Well, I think it's a little of both, but I think there's nowhere in the world that has as good a genetics as the Arizona Strip. I think, if you look at other places that have produced big bucks, I mean, historically the Strip, and I don't want to speak like I'm an expert at all. Like I said, I've been up there 3 or 4 times just on hunts, and but my perception is that the genetics and the country up there yield big bucks. Whether a 4-year-old buck that's just a giant, just great genetics, everything's just working out right, or he's a 230 buck that's a 8 or 9-year-old that's it's both. That place is crazy. And there's only 75 tags in B, and I don't even know what there is in A. I think there's like 50 or something in A, but
Okay.
13A. But you know, I think half of these big bucks would not get shot if there weren't for cameras, because
Yeah.
they run such a big area sometimes. They only need to water once, and as soon as all the guides know that buck's around, they'll just flood that area on every single point and knob over and over and over and over and over until they finally get them. And there's it's at some point I think we need to let the animals do their thing, and there has to be some reprieve, some sanctuary of knowing that they can just do their thing and be deer. But it's not illegal. So I mean, I get it, and I am hypocritical when I'm talking about this, but it's kind of like I've finally gotten to a point where I just think something needs to be done. I don't know what that is. I have some of my ideas, but I'm glad that I'm not in charge of having to figure all that out, because it is going to be a tough task for somebody. But you know, yeah, it makes for good conversation. I know the Gritty Bowman Brian call. I haven't listened to it, but he had a couple podcasts on trail cameras. But I've heard some good feedback from that, and they do a good job over there. The guys at the Gritty Bowman do a good job, and another, just kind of changing gears totally. Another podcast that I like and listen to a lot on my trail running is Knock On podcast.
Oh yeah, yep. Dudley.
John Dudley. He's such a technician with archery equipment. I highly recommend to guys out there that are into archery, listen to Knock On podcast, and that's spelled like NOCK. On, and you can find it on iTunes. I think you could probably just Google it, but that's one I listen to. And there's actually a few business podcasts I listen to, like Gary Vaynerchuk, Ask Gary V. He's a foul-mouthed New Yorker that says the F word about every 6 words, which I don't like, but he does have some incredible stuff on marketing and content and business, and so I do listen to him some. And yeah, I mean, I get people sending me messages all the time that they listen and love my podcast, and I'm grateful for that. And I also listen to podcasts myself, and I know that it's a great way to learn and pass time, and to also hear other perspectives. So I listen to some real estate podcasts, the Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I listen to his podcast sometimes. I listen to social media marketing podcast, and actually some real estate investing podcasts. So are there anything out there that you've learned this season, whether it's gear or anything that any YouTube stuff or anything that you're following? Or I throw one other in there, obviously MidwestWhitetail.com. Bill Winke and his crew, Aaron Warbritton, they do a phenomenal job. They're kind of, I watch them every Monday morning, and they've done a great job with their stuff.
Yeah, no, for me, I to be honest, you mentioned Gritty Bowman. Yeah, I'm friends with Aaron and Aaron Snyder, and we just finally talked for like 15 minutes the other day. Finally caught up with just a tiny little bit, and then I lost signal with him. I haven't talked to him again, but yeah, no, I've been running so stinking ragged. I think I've got like 200 podcasts that are downloaded on the phone that I haven't listened to yet. So I haven't listened to a squat. The only one that I've been kind of trying, not podcast, but the only thing that I have been keeping up on is I'm a member of Quality Deer Management Association, and so they've got their publication Quality Whitetails that comes out. I really do love that organization from the standpoint of they are, I mean, just science, what's going on, behavior, forage, food, I mean, just everything, anything whitetail and deer management. I mean, they are in it. There's nobody even close to them right now. And they've got some really great movement articles in there, and from some of their more recent research out of, most everything that's been researched for deer is back east, unfortunately, but some of it has some applicability to what we're dealing with, and so it's really helped shape some of the things that I'm thinking about for 2017. But no, I need to catch up on it. But no, the podcast that you mentioned right there, I'll just tell you, the three that I listen to is yours, Gritty Bowman, and I do listen to Knock On every now and then. Joe Rogan. I love Joe.
Joe. I listen to just some of the hunting ones. Joe actually sent me a few messages. He listens to my podcast, so I thought that was really cool. He's actually sent me some real positive direct messages through Instagram, which I thought was really cool. Rogan just reaching out to me out of the blue.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention too. One of my favorites is the Meat Eater podcast.
Yeah.
I never miss an episode of the Meat Eater just because I know Giannis and Steve and those guys, and they just crack me up. I mean, it just cracks me up.
And I guess and the reason why I bring up those ones and to kind of bring it back, we just kind of dove into all these other random podcasts. Why? Because we were talking about discussion, we were talking about ideas, and talking about some of these topics that I know other people have talked about. We're talking about fair chase, we're talking about private land versus public land, and we're talking about value sets and all that. I mean, we're not the only ones talking about it. It's a bigger discussion that a lot of these other guys have talked about as well. So that's why I think it's relevant for me. But no, it is. It's something I just don't know if there's a solution to.
Yeah, and back to your point of that, I have some people that have sent me messages and they're like, "Well, we just listen to your podcast exclusively. We wouldn't listen." I'm like, I encourage people, hey, listen to as much as you want, getting everybody's different ideas and opinions. And Brian Call sent me, actually, I'm getting some live podcasting gear for, I'm going to try and do some on the hunt, like on these Cooster hunts, try and get in the evenings, kind of recapping the hunts and doing that. And Brian was gracious enough, and Giannis over at the Meat Eater, to help me with the gear that they're using to record some of this live stuff. And so it's one would think that this guy's got this going and this guy's got this going, and in essence they're competing for people listening. Yes, but we all have our different qualities that there's reasons why people listen to us. So it's, and most people are going to listen to 3 or 4. Once you get into one podcast, very rarely do you just listen to one. So, I mean, I encourage guys to branch out and, listen to all sorts of stuff, because you're going to learn. And for me, I want to inform and educate by having good guests on and picking guys' brains and trying to get little morsels of information out there that, that's my goal. And the upside for me is getting the great feedback that I get from all the listeners by emails and direct message and all that kind of stuff. And it's just been very rewarding for me, buddy, and we can chew up an hour and a half as good as anybody. I appreciate you
whether we cover anything or not. Exactly.
Yeah. It's fun sometimes just to not even have a outline or a script and just kind of talk like conversation style, just like we're catching up on the phone with a buddy, and that's all we did today. So I'm gearing up for these Coos deer hunts, and I know you've got just finish up these few little last late season, and you'll be done. Kind of starting to get the turkey on the brain, just starting to look at it out there on the horizon. I know it's coming. It'll be here before we know it. So it's exciting stuff.
Cool.
Yep.
Right on.
Always love having you on. For those that haven't been on Chris's website or on his social media, it's Roe Hunting Resources. That's ROE huntingresources.com. Chris, you're piling up the followers on Instagram. I saw the other day. I'm like, wow, your Instagram account's really growing.
Well, to be honest, that's where I'm spending more of my time. I don't want it. Here's another topic. We could end up diving into social media stuff, but no, I am enjoying Instagram a lot more lately. And I do try, and this is one thing that people have given me feedback on, and for those that are listening that are on my Instagram account or follow me that have sent me feedback. Thank you, because I appreciate it. I really do try to make mine. It's fun, it's entertaining, but there's a component of meat and potatoes in there as well. You know what I mean? So if I post a picture of something, there's probably a reason. And so people have enjoyed that. It's just not a selfie in the mirror going, "Yay, look at me." I always try to give some level of meat and potatoes or something they're fun to engage in, and that's why from these late season doe hunts I've been running some just contests of here's what I went out and did this. Can you guess how was it a doe? Did I kill with a bow? Did I kill with a handgun? And if so, how heavy was she? This latest one is I went out the other night and sat in a blind, filled a tag or 2 or 3. I'm not going to today, but. But anyway, how many does did I kill, and if I killed more than one, what's the combined dress weight of them, and then some, like what age and that type of stuff. So we have some fun with some of the stuff. So yeah, I definitely encourage people to follow me on Instagram because it's a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, buddy, it's great having you on. It's great catching up with you. I want to end by thanking the sponsors of my podcast. GoHunt.com, Insider, Phone Scope, Outdoorsman's, and Real Game Calls. And guys, as you know, you hear these commercials on this podcast. You can use the JScott promo code and get discounts with each one of those companies. And the Phone Scope promo code is PhoneScope16. The rest are just JScott promo code, and I get so much feedback from my sponsors of the support that you guys give them, and I just appreciate that. Without you guys' support and without the sponsor support, this wouldn't be possible. So I just want to shout out there. And Chris, always awesome having you on. Look forward to doing it again. Looking forward to turkey season. You and I bouncing stuff back and forth coming up here in a couple months. So take care. God bless. Have a great Christmas holiday season, and look forward to a great 2017 and all the great things that you're going to be doing. So keep it up.
Absolutely, man. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks again always. And Merry Christmas to you guys as well. And look forward to our next conversation.
All right, buddy. Take care.